Civic participation in politics is how both the involved citizens and governments influence each other and policies through the use of ICTs. It can range from Facebook and MoveOn to live news broadcasts of protesters or natural disasters. A lot of the time, groups that want to pass information through medium and technology target the characteristics of the majority, or they will isolate people that will typically pass their message onto a friend. If you look at political campaigns, a noticeable trend that certainly wasn't started but was popularized with Barack Obama using social media to push forward his platform. Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton used the same strategy, the use of social media for their campaigns, spreading their beliefs and rallying their followers. Technology now has everything to do with the governments and how they enforce laws, how elections are won, and how policies are changed. On August 12th in Charlottesville, Virginia, white supremacist group gathered around the statue of Robert E. Lee, protesting its removal. When counter-protesters stepped in and got violent, Governor McAuliffe declared a state of emergency as a reaction to the intense violence surrounding the statue. 2 policemen, Lieutenant H.J. Cullen and Trooper Pilot Burke M.M. Bates, were killed. A car crash that ran over a crowd of people killed 32-year-old Heather Hare, while at least 19 other people were sent to the hospital. In reaction to this, our mayor, Jim Gray, moved his announcements of the removal of the 2 statues in Cheapside to the next day.
These could be the next historical dominoes to fall. When Mayor Jim Gray announced on Saturday, the day Charlottesville erupted in violence, that Lexington would take down 2 Confederate war statues here, he knew controversy would follow.
There are still different points of view in my own family about these statues. A grandmother who told us the stories of our family, our history of actually 3 great uncles who fought, brothers who fought against each other at the Battle of Shiloh in Mississippi.
The U.S. Civil War ended more than 150 years ago, but here its legacy and the passions over the monuments to it linger.
At the end of the day, they lost, and ultimately it's a symbol of losers. It's not anything about historical greatness. It actually is offensive to a lot of people.
Some here told us they wanted the statues to remain, but after Charlottesville, they didn't want to say so on camera. Several are more vocal on Mayor Gray's Facebook page.
This began with the Black Lives Movement. It then started getting people thinking, well, if Black Lives matter, why are we honoring men who did not honor Black lives? You've got people who say, gosh, I grew up around this statue, it's a part of my community, why should you change it? Oh gosh, it was related to slavery? You know, I didn't get that.
Many of the statues were erected decades after the war, including this monument to Confederate General John Hunt Morgan, built in 1911, and this one to John Breckinridge from 1887. What many people here find offensive is that in addition to being a U.S. vice president and the last Confederate Secretary of War, John Breckinridge was a slave owner, and his statue stands here at Cheapside Market, which was the largest market in the region for buying and selling slaves. If the City Council and the Kentucky Military Heritage Commission agree, the statues would be moved to join monuments to Union soldiers and those from the wars in Korea and Vietnam.
We're not revising history. We're not erasing history. What we're doing is we are telling an accurate story of history. It was actually a revisionist history when these statues were erected.
If the statues come down, many here have one remaining concern.
I'm worried about the response. After Charlotte, I'm extremely worried about what kind of response and how our police are going to handle it.
If the next domino falls here, many Kentuckians hope it doesn't fall violently. John Hendren, Al Jazeera, Lexington, Kentucky.
Network society. Jim Gray knew about the protests in Charlottesville in real time due to the fact that we live in a network society. His real-time involvement, even if it was just him watching or knowing the status of the protests, directly influenced his decision to announce the removal of the statues in Cheapside. He previously decided to announce the removal of the statues a week prior, but after finding out how much people wanted to stop him, he announced it the next day as a strategic move. That announcement also had a real-time effect. Soon after he made his announcement, some of the white supremacist groups announced that they will be at the removal of the statue in Lexington. This chain of announcements led to indirect rebuttals on both sides, even though they never directly made contact with each other. These have made a direct impact on the public policy. The removal of the statues was pushed forward. The threats from the white supremacist groups to Lexington increased and led Jim Gray to further prepare the Lexington Police Department.
Technology determines the development of society. If we didn't have the technology we have now, white supremacy groups like the ones in Charlottesville would not be able to rally so easily. It was not just the locals, but people from the surrounding counties and states. In contrast, the counter-protesters would not be able to know about the protests happening and rally against them. If it weren't for the widespread of technologies, Jim Gray would not be able to advance the announcement for the removal of the statues in Cheapside in real time. Also, the same white supremacy group that was in Charlottesville wouldn't be able to plan ahead to come to Lexington. Again, in contrast to that, counter-protesters would be able to prepare in advance to rally against the protesters. By the nature of these transactions between civilians and the local governments, it would be hard to refute that technology directly influenced not the want to take action, but capability to take action. In turn, changed government policy and forever influenced lives. Jim Gray was influenced by technology. The word got out that he was going to remove the Confederate statues by the use of social media and the internet. Technology connects our society by providing messages to the public very quickly. The idea of taking down the statues was developed first and later put into effect by getting the message out on social networking systems.